Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the raid of the Marion County Record newspaper in Marion, Kansas? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing you in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. This case takes place in Marion, Kansas, a farming town with about 1,900 residents that is about an hour north of Wichita. The town has a newspaper called the Marion County Record. A couple named Bill and Joan Meyer bought the newspaper in 1998, along with their son Eric Meyer. Eric eventually took over the business after having a long career in journalism. The Record earned a reputation as being a little edgy. They engaged in aggressive reporting. It helped them to be successful, but also resulted in the paper accumulating a few enemies. For example, the mayor of the town accused the Record of being deceptive. When Eric took over as editor of the newspaper, he made it even more mean-spirited. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. A reporter for the Marion County Record named Deb Groover decided to investigate the background of Marion's police chief, Gideon Cody. Gideon had been a captain in the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department for 24 years. He resigned after being accused of berating a female officer with insulting language. I guess this is as opposed to berating somebody with a plethora of kind, loving, and compassionate words. He took the job as Marion police chief, even though it paid about half as much as his old job. Deb spoke to Gideon in April of 2023. He didn't seem too happy about her investigation. She never printed the story because her sources would not go on the record, but her investigation still aggravated Gideon. In June 2023, Gideon ordered his deputies not to send daily police activity logs to the Record. This broke a long-standing tradition. The Record had been publishing these reports for many years. As all this was going on, another investigation by the Marion County Record was stirring up trouble. It involved a local restaurant owner named Carrie Newell and her estranged husband, Ryan. Ryan believed that Carrie was driving a motor vehicle even though she had lost her license after a 2008 DUI conviction. He managed to obtain a screenshot of Carrie's driving record, which he supplied to a woman named Pam. Pam, in turn, supplied the screenshot to a city council member named Ruth Herbel and to a reporter for the Record named Phyllis Zorn. In an effort to confirm the legitimacy of the screenshot, Phyllis went to the Kansas Department of Revenue website and accessed Carrie's driving history. Carrie had a liquor license for her restaurant. Ruth, the city council member, intended on challenging the renewal of this license. So Carrie was at risk of losing something valuable as a result of this information leak. Tensions were high in the small town of Marion. On August 1, 2023, there was a meet and greet at Carrie's restaurant, which was attended by a congressman. Eric Meyer and Phyllis Zorn attended the event, but they were kicked out by Gideon Cody. So the newspaper representatives were kicked out by the police chief. The police chief claimed that he was told by Carrie that she did not want them in the restaurant. On August 4, Eric sent an email to Gideon. Eric said that he had received a copy of Carrie's private Department of Revenue records and suggested police misconduct may have been involved, like somebody with a connection to the police department made those records available. He also mentioned that Carrie might be driving without a valid license. A city council meeting was held on August 7. During this meeting, Carrie accused the Record of illegally obtaining her driving history. This same day, Gideon learned from Eric that Phyllis had accessed Carrie's information from the Department of Revenue. Gideon believed this was illegal. Before a person can access driving records from that website, they must supply a valid reason. For example, they intend to use the information for research, they work for the government, or the person to whom the records pertain granted them permission. Gideon argued that the Marion County Record did not have a qualifying reason to gain access. On August 10, Gideon applied for search warrants for the office of the Marion County Record, the home of Joan Meyer, and the home of the council member Ruth Herbel. Gideon claimed that the record could not have obtained Carey's driving history without being deceptive or impersonating her. He suspected that the record had committed 2 offenses: identity theft and unlawful use of a computer. The identity theft charge is a felony. The search warrants were approved on August 11. The police conducted raids that same day. Eric and his mother, Joan Meyer, who was 98 years old, were both home that day. Evidently, they lived in the same house. Joan was waiting for a Meals on Wheels delivery when the police stopped by the residence and conducted the raid. They rifled through personal belongings and remained in the house for hours. The next day, at about 1:30 p.m., Joan Meyer died from cardiac arrest. The media ran stories about the raid and about Joan's death. Many members of the public were outraged. They were also worried that free speech was under attack by the police. Understandably, much of the negative attention was directed toward Gideon Cody. He seemed like he was a petty and vindictive individual who was simply trying to get revenge on an organization because they were investigating him. Gideon addressed these allegations by saying, quote, "I believe when the rest of the story is available to the public, the judicial system that is being questioned will be vindicated," unquote. Later, he denied that he investigated the record due to their investigation of him. He said, quote, "I have no vendetta against them," unquote. Gideon pointed out that the raids were approved by a judge and a county attorney. In a curious twist, the county attorney withdrew the warrants, saying that there had been insufficient evidence to justify the raid. A judge ordered the return of all the items that had been seized. As it turns out, the accessing of Carey's driving history by the Marion County Record was lawful. A spokesperson for the Department of Revenue told the media that it was legal for a reporter or anyone else to check the status of another person's driver's license. It appears as though Gideon's search warrant application contained false information. There never was a crime. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. The Marion County Record received a tremendous amount of support after the unjustified and potentially illegal raid by the police. The next edition of the newspaper after the raid had a headline which read, "Seized but not silenced." The newspaper has received a massive increase in subscribers. Many of them are not from Marion County. I can appreciate how someone would want to support a newspaper that was unjustly raided by the police, but if somebody's not from Marion County, I doubt they will find the articles to be relevant. For example, it's hard to imagine someone who lives in New York City being particularly interested in a story about how Farmer Smith's cow Daisy got loose again on Old Highway 77. Item number 2. The Marion County Record did not break the law when they accessed Carey's driving record, but did they do anything to provoke the situation? It's clear that the information about Carey was being promoted due to some type of divorce dispute or something like that. A newspaper should be particularly careful about getting involved in any type of marital dispute. Furthermore, some people have argued that chasing a local restaurant owner down for a 15-year-old conviction is a little ridiculous. The story isn't much more compelling than the typical articles about farm animals getting loose. Although, if there was a farm animal who was caught drinking and driving, that would be an interesting story. Here's how I look at the situation. If it was just a 15-year-old conviction that was at issue, I would agree that reporting on it was petty and unnecessary. The problem was not the conviction. Rather, it was Carey's driving behavior after being convicted. By her own admission, she was operating a motor vehicle without a valid license. This is technically newsworthy, especially in a slow news area like Marion County. I would be surprised if the motivation behind the investigation was really out of the concern for the safety of the driving public. I imagine there were political reasons for the record going after Carey, but either way, when considering the question, did the newspaper do anything to provoke the raid, I don't think that they did. As long as it's honest, aggressive reporting isn't always a bad thing. It does not justify sending a bunch of armed government agents into private businesses and homes. Item number 3, did Gideon Cody retaliate for the newspaper investigating him, or was he just trying to uphold the law? If the newspaper had violated the law, Gideon certainly had the right to investigate. After all, he was the police chief. Gideon was, of course, incorrect about the law, but that doesn't necessarily indicate maliciousness. To be fair, as he mentioned, other people signed off on his search warrants. In my opinion, I believe that Gideon was probably retaliating against the Marion County Record. Even before the raid, he cut off access to the police daily activity logs. There was no good reason for that decision. The public certainly had the right to that information. Furthermore, even if Gideon truly believed the Record had broken the law by accessing Carey's driving history, the raid was overkill and completely unnecessary. He must have known that no felony was actually involved either way, yet he pretended like he was investigating a potential felony. He was trying to inflate the alleged offenses to justify a massive police raid. I believe that Gideon just wanted to make the people at the Record pay for investigating him. He was embarrassed about the behavior that led to his resignation from his prior employer, and he was angry that anyone was trying to find out the truth. Ironically, in order to get revenge on the people looking into him, he targeted them for trying to reveal the truth about someone else's behavior. Gideon knew that he could not retaliate directly, so he used the driving history access situation as an excuse. He was probably looking for any reason to cause trouble. He appeared to be bold, reckless, impulsive, and hypersensitive to criticism. Item number 4, were the police responsible for Joan Meyer's death? I would be surprised if they could be held criminally responsible, but if a lawsuit was filed, I think they would be in trouble. There are a few reasons I believe this. The newspaper employee who accessed Carey's information worked in the office of the Marion County Record. Searching the home that Eric and Joan shared was unnecessary. The police also seized a device like an Amazon Echo Dot. Joan used it to turn lights on and off in the house. Why would that be important to the investigation? The police raid was traumatic for Joan Meyer. At one point, 7 police officers were in her home. In a video of the raid, she can be heard berating the officers. She told them, "Don't you touch any of that stuff. This is my house. You blank holes." She approached one officer and asked, "Does your mother love you? Do you love your mother? You're a blank hole." The police have not offered an update on whether or not that officer loved his mother. Joan continued by demanding, "Get out of my house. Get out. Stand outside. You can stand outside that door and still see him. I don't want you in my house." There was something about that one officer that Joan just did not like. After pushing past 2 officers, she yelled, "What are you doing? Those are personal papers." Right before her death, on the day after the raid, Joan said things like, "Where are all the good people? How come they haven't done something about this? Why are they allowed to do this?" Considering the raid was unlawful, and it may have caused Joan's death, I'd be surprised if Gideon keeps his job. The good news for Gideon is that if he saved his resignation letter from his prior job, he only needs to change the name of his employer and send it in. Now moving to my final thoughts. The police chief made things much worse for himself and others by engaging in potentially immoral behavior. But it's frightening to think of what would have happened if he was successful. He could have shut down free speech in Marion County single-handedly. Fortunately, the people he tried to victimize stood up to him and fought for freedom of expression. Those are my thoughts on the Marion County Record raid. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.